Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1934B, and today's date is August 4th, 2019, and the title of the episode is, We Knew It Was Going to Happen, Exculpatory Evidence, Boom. Now, before we get started, we've been talking about protecting your devices, protecting yourself from big tech. I mean, it's the year 2019, and if you're not using a VPN by now on your desktop, tablet, or mobile device while you browse the internet, then you're really exposing yourself to a lot of potential danger. Here, let me show you how easy this is. Click Connect. Once I'm connected, my IP address is now different than before. See? This month, Virtual Shield is offering a 4th of July celebration special. Sign up for free for 30-day trial to Virtual Shield VPN and see what the hype is all about. You have nothing to lose. Click the link below. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, as we can see, the deep state, they are panicking. They're using ammunition. And we know that they are trapped. We all knew that this was going to happen. Q gave us a warning, a 24-hour warning. Yes, I know it was a little bit over 24 hours, but it was a warning. They heard chatter. They knew something was going to happen. And it seems that since the Patriots, they knew that something was going to happen, they might have used this to their advantage. Now, it might not seem like this at this point, but you're going to have to follow along and try to understand where I am going with this. And just to let everyone know, this report is split into two. It's a B and a C. C is going to be on BitChute. So if you want to hear the in-depth, uncensored part, you're going to have to go off YouTube and go on to BitChute. But before we get to that, let's talk about what is happening right now. Now, we know that Trump has been calling out the squad, pointing the finger at the squad, having all eyes on the squad, and also pointing out certain political individuals like Cummings. He's pointed out Schiff. He's pointed out many others, Pelosi. And this is all part of a plan. He's doing this on purpose. Nothing is but done by coincidence. Now, what's very interesting is that the feds are now looking into possible campaign finance misdeeds by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC. And her chief of staff, well, he decided to resign on Friday, which tells you something is up. The hammer is about to fall on AOC. And it looks like her chief of staff is getting out before it happens. And there's a reason why Trump continually points the finger, letting everyone know what is going on here. Now, in Baltimore, we know that Trump has tweeted out that it's a rat-infested city. Elijah Cummings is the representative. And the city of Baltimore cannot account for billions of dollars it receives in federal funding as crime, drugs, and rats run rampant in the city. And this is according to a recent report on the city's expenses. Now, according to a 2018 audit of the city's finance provided by usaspending.gov, Baltimore received $5.44 billion in federal grants, contracts, and other financial assistance. The $5.44 billion in federal grants remain unaccounted for, with many of the awarded amounts showing up as zero in the audit for entries like Baltimore City's Mayor's Office, Baltimore City's Housing Police, Baltimore City Health Department, Baltimore City Public School System. And the Baltimore City Auditor Andrew Askew resigned in February after rumors resurfaced that she faced pressure to write off money that was not accounted for. Former Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh resigned 3 months later due to a growing scandal where she allegedly profited from over hundreds of thousands of dollars from children's books she wrote that the University of Maryland's medical system bought while she served as a board member. And now everyone is looking at Baltimore and they're wondering, where is the $5.44 billion? Remember, Trump tweeted out the following: Baltimore numbers are the worst in the United States on crime and the economy. Billions of dollars have been pumped in over the years, but to no avail. The money was stolen or wasted. Ask Elijah Cummings where it went. He should investigate himself with his oversight committee. But again, Pelosi changed the rules of the Oversight Committee, and it's focused on Trump only. But yet again, we know where all this went. This is not a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence that Trump was pointing this out or tweeting it out. It was all part of the plan. Now, coming out of Front Page magazine, they reported that the Hillary Clinton email investigation and cover-up was assisted by the FBI. Now, we kind of knew this from the very, very beginning. Let me read a little bit about what has happened here. In breaking news, the American Center for Law and Justice, or ACLJ, and this is Jay Sekulow's organization, not related to his role as the president's attorney, has obtained actual copies of the immunity agreements pertaining to Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson in the Hillary email scandal. This was a stunning litigation win, hard fought after years of litigation by the ACLJ attorneys who were unable to extract the documents through the formal Freedom of Information Act request process due to a lack of cooperation by the government. In reviewing what the government uncovered, keep in mind that Cheryl Mills was Secretary Clinton's chief of staff at the State Department, and then bizarrely she subsequently served as Clinton's attorney, representing her in the email scandal. Heather Samuelson worked on Hillary Clinton's 2008 campaign and then became a senior advisor to her at the State Department, as well as the White House liaison. Somehow, she also became one of Clinton's personal attorneys during the email scandal. The immunity agreement issued by the government were crafted so that the agencies could extract information from the parties, despite the fact that this is not necessary because the Department of Justice has the power to require that the information be turned over. Clinton kept classified emails on a private server in violation of federal law, and the immunity agreements reveal that both Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson were actively involved in the cover-up of these emails as well as in the destruction of evidence. According to Jordan Sekulow, executive director of the ACLJ, it is extremely unusual for someone involved in a criminal cover-up who needs an immunity deal to ensure the evasion of jail time later becomes the attorney representing the other potential criminal or co-conspirator. Let me continue. Subsequently, Mills and Samuelson finally gave the computers over to the FBI, which, per their agreements, limited the FBI's investigation. The FBI agreed to a limit the method by which the emails investigated would be obtained, B, the scope of files which would be investigated, and C, the time frame parameters for investigated emails. In other words, the FBI agreed in the immunity contracts not to do a full investigation on the Clinton emails. To make matters worse, again, per the immunity agreement, the FBI agreed to destroy the computers that had the backup emails. As Congressman Jim Jordan referenced during the Mueller hearing recently, the FBI used BleachBit to purge the server so the information could never be accessed in the future and used hammers to smash the cell phones involved. In other words, the FBI and Department of Justice participated in the destruction of the evidence. In effect, this constitutes a conspiracy between the Obama Department of Justice, Loretta Lynch, and the Comey-led FBI to cover up Clinton's crimes. James Comey, the former head of the FBI, came out a few weeks after all this occurred and famously said there were no charges that would be pressed against Hillary Clinton in spite of all this evidence. Now we have the evidence that the FBI was in on it too. The truth is coming out slowly but surely. And again, there's no place for these people to run. There is no place to hide. The cover-up is going to get them. Now, Nunes was out there, and he was absolutely right. He said that in their first month, the Mueller gang was already working on an obstruction trap. Now, text messages from Peter Strzok and Lisa Page show that the Mueller special counsel in his first month was already working on an obstruction trap for Trump because they knew there was no collusion. They were never going to get him on the Russian collusion. There was nothing there. They made it up. So what they were trying to do is they were trying to get him on obstruction. That was the whole push. And the Russian collusion story would just follow along with that. So when we look back at the text messages, and these are from June 7, 2017, between Strzok and Page, they read as follows. Peter Strzok, unless you've got something going, we're starting obstruction team brief, but just come. Sit in on whatever comes next. Lisa Page. I mean, I've got a lot of work to do, but okay, who is in it? Next, Peter Strzok. Don't then. I'm just saying, come over here and stick your head in. I've gotten more the past couple of days after hours talking with Aaron Zebley and Redacted than all day the past week and a half. Was not suggesting it for any particular reason, just a dive in sort of things. If you have to work to do, I'd say do it. Lisa Page. I left. F it. There's no amount of time I can spend and finish everything. Whatevs. So, as you can see, they were starting the obstruction part of it from the very, very beginning. And they already knew that this was the path they were going to go down because there was no Russian collusion. They were going to push for obstruction so they can impeach Trump. That was the plan. And it didn't work. It failed. And this is why the impeachment process is going absolutely nowhere. Now, Tom Fitton, he got the goods on Comey. He tweeted out the following. Huge. Comey caught with @real Donald Trump FBI files in his house. Judicial Watch lawsuit gets the goods, and now the Department of Justice must act. And once again, Tom Fitton from Judicial Watch, he's getting all the information. Now, in a few days or so, information about George Papadopoulos is going to drop. Maria Bartiromo interviewed Trey Gowdy, and he said something very interesting. This is from The Dirty Truth. He tweeted out the following. Maria Bartiromo confirmed what was in the transcript with George Papadopoulos. Trey Gowdy says what you just said is textbook exculpatory evidence. Take a listen.
Where Stephen Halper said something to him like, well, you know, Russia has all these all these emails of Hillary Clinton, and, you know, when they get out, that'd be really good for you, right? Would you help? That'd be really good for you and the Trump campaign if all those emails got out, right? And George Papadopoulos answered and said, that's crazy. Are you kidding me? That would be treason. People get hanged for stuff like that. I would never do something like that. That is the transcript that George Papadopoulos told me is still classified. Now, I know you can't admit if that's it or not, but let me just say, if that is basically the conversation, that should have been given to the FISA court, right? That should have made public to at least show us that George Papadopoulos had that question asked of him, and he said, are you nuts? That's treason.
Only if you want a justice system that's fair. I mean, that's the only reason it should be produced to a court, is if you want a justice system that treats people justly and fairly. That, what you just described, is textbook exculpatory information. It tends to show the person did not commit a crime. A crime, by the way, Maria, he was never charged with. I mean, Papadopoulos was charged with a process crime, but never with colluding with Russia. But
now, Trey Gowdy said exculpatory evidence. And that brings us back to post 3548, where Q, this was on July 30th, 2019, gave us a new placeholder. This is about exculpatory evidence. If we go to post 3542, Q back then on July 29, 2019, gave us a link to Law Cornell and the definition of exculpatory. And it reads as follows. A description of evidence in a criminal trial that serves to justify, excuse, or introduce a reasonable doubt about the defendant's alleged actions or intentions. Exculpatory evidence may ultimately show that the defendant is not guilty. No wonder police and prosecutors must, to uphold the defendant's constitutional right to due process, tell the defense about any exculpatory evidence they discovered. And what Trey Gowdy is saying is that this should have been presented to the FISA court, which they didn't. This would be exculpatory evidence. Post 3559. Q says, watch the news this week. and again gives us that placeholder for exculpatory evidence. And when this information drops, there's going to be exculpatory evidence showing that George Papadopoulos is innocent. Now let's talk about the upcoming election and voter ID, because we know that Q has been telling us that voter ID is coming. Trump has tweeted out that he would like to see voter ID. So Tom Fitton, once again, is doing a fantastic job, and he's calling out each state that has weak voter ID laws. He tweeted out the following. The following states should strengthen their voter ID laws: Arkansas, Alabama, Florida, Hawaii, Idaho, Louisiana, Michigan, Rhode Island, South Dakota, Texas, Alaska, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Iowa, Kentucky, Missouri, Montana, New Hampshire, Oklahoma, South Carolina, Utah, Washington, and West Virginia. He continued with his tweets. To be clear, the above states have some type of voter ID requirement. There are 14 states with no voter ID: California, Oregon, New York, New Jersey, Wyoming, New Mexico, New England, Minnesota, Illinois, and Vermont, and he went on and on about the other states. And then he said only 10 states have strict voter ID laws: Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, Wisconsin, Arizona, North Dakota, Ohio. And he said forgot Pennsylvania, which also doesn't have a voter ID requirement. And as you can see, he is calling out the states, and he is now pushing for voter ID. And I believe they're gathering all the evidence right now, which they collected during the 2018 election, which I also believe they have some from 2016, but mostly from the 2018. And they're going to use all of this to make the case for voter ID. We'll have to see how this all plays out, but it seems like they are headed in that direction. Now, we have seen events occur this last couple of hours, and we all knew that this was going to happen. But let's start with the Mueller effect, because support for impeachment right now among registered Democrats, it has dropped in the immediate aftermath of Robert Mueller's disastrous testimony. And actually, since Mueller testified, it has thrown more cold water on their push to impeach, because the whole Mueller testimony did not work out well for them. And it's showing up in certain polls that's showing that, people are not with the impeachment track whatsoever. They know it's a dead end. And the entire deep state push to get Trump out by pushing the special counsel to investigate Russian collusion, obstruction, and the rest has completely failed. It is now shut down. But we knew that the deep state wouldn't stop. And we need to go back to post 3568. Q back then says, brackets bold, 24-hour warning, be vigilant, see something, say something, know your surroundings at all times. And of course, two events, I should say, happen. So over the weekend, we had these two events. One was in El Paso and one was in Ohio. Trump tweeted out the following. Terrible shootings in El Paso, Texas. Reports are very bad, many killed. Working with state and local authorities and law enforcement, spoke to governor to pledge total support of federal government. God be with you all. He also tweeted out, God be with you all. Trump pledges full support for El Paso shooting victims as lawmakers also grieve. And it is a terrible, terrible thing that we see these things happen like this. Now, since this happened, the mainstream media, Hollywood, politicians, they took this opportunity to blame Trump. Now, John Leguizamo, he was out there and he tweeted, I blame Trump. His hate speech is triggering all this violence against Latinx in America. Shameful and harmful. Rob Reiner tweeted out another mass shooting, another white nationalist. There are not fine people on both sides. The President of the United States bears responsibility. Booker was out there and he said, I believe in my faith there's a saying that you reap what you sow. And Donald Trump has been sowing this kind of hatred in our country when he talks about invasion, infestation, and his shithole countries, when he tells people to go back. He's responsible in sowing these kinds of divisions to hate mongers. In fact, failing to even condemn them when we saw them in Charlottesville. Well, he has condemned them, and he's also condemned this shooting. And you can tell by the tweets that I just read. We also have Senator Sherrod Brown said in the wake of mass shooting early Sunday that claimed the lives of 9 people in Dayton, Ohio, that the U.S. is better than Trump's racist and divisive language. Now, as you can see, they're all out there blaming Trump for this. Now, Trump had nothing to do with this, but they're using this opportunity to blame him, and they want him to bear responsibility. Now, Joe M. tweeted out the following: a deliberate message sent to Q from the cabal, saying they have reprisals up their sleeve to counter the unstoppable August heat that is hurtling towards them. Now we know what she meant. And down below it says, Chad Pergram says, Pelosi to House Dems, now we must own August on the ground and on social media to make our issues too hot to handle for Senate Republicans to block. We must create a drumbeat across America for the people. Now, if we go back to Q's post, this is August 1st, 2019. Q says, C before D, coats before D class. And then it says, the month of August is traditionally very hot. You have more than you know. And from this message and from what Q has been saying, it looks like the deep state responded to Q, letting Q know that they had something planned. Now, very interestingly, it is coming out now that a federal prosecutor, they are treating El Paso shooting as domestic terrorism, possibly a hate crime. Now, the U.S. Attorney for the Western District of Texas, this is John Bash, he said the following: we're also treating it as a domestic terrorism case, and we're going to do what we do to terrorists in this country, which is deliver swift and certain justice. Bash said the shooting meets the statutory definition of domestic terrorism in that it appears to be designed to intimidate a civilian population, to say the least. Bash said that after consulting with Attorney General William Barr, federal investigators are conducting the investigation with a view towards bringing federal hate crime charges and federal firearm charges which carry a penalty of death. We are seriously considering those charges. We're going to conduct a methodical and careful investigation with a view towards those charges. Now, first of all, this is all being okayed by William Barr, the Attorney General. The question is, who's John Bash? Well, John Bash was sworn in as the United States Attorney for the Western District of Texas on December 11, 2017. President Trump nominated Mr. Bash on September 11, 2017, and he was confirmed by the Senate on November 9, 2017. As a U.S. Attorney, Mr. Bash is the chief federal law enforcement officer in the Western District of Texas. He's responsible for prosecuting violations of federal criminal law in the district, as well as representing the United States in all civil litigation in the district in which the United States is a party. Prior to his appointment as U.S. Attorney, Mr. Bash served as a special assistant to the President and as an associate White House counsel. Bash was an assistant to the U.S. Solicitor General from 2012 to 2017, where he represented the United States before the U.S. Supreme Court. He was previously an associate in the law firm of Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher, and served as a law clerk to the late U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Scalia and to Circuit Judge Brett M. Kavanaugh on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia's circuit. Think about this. Think about what is going on here. Think about who the players are right now. Remember, the Patriots knew what was going to happen. The Patriots understood. The Patriots are still in control. Let's go back to post 2973. This is March 15, 2019. It says, Meet IG, Huber interview, RE. They range from domestic terrorism to court-authorized wiretaps of criminal organizations to child pedophiles and those who would exploit our children, criminal aliens, big fraud schemes. Do you think the above is Utah-related? Crumbs are being dropped and missed. Think scope. So Huber, his range is from domestic terrorism to everything else. What's happening right now? There's an investigation into domestic terrorism. Think about it. Think about what's going on. And if you'd like to see the uncensored portion of this, you can come over to bitchute.com/channel/X22 Report. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.